So I am going to put the Cincinnati Bengals on top of this division and just be prepared to take the wet noodle lashings that come with that. I don't believe the Steelers are that much better than they were last year. If I hear one more thing about Mike Tomlin's non-losing season streak, I'm going to jump out a window.
Yeah.
We were 38 points below average or below even last year. We gave up 38 more points than we scored. We were holding that thing together with duct tape and baling wire. Mike Tomlin deserves every penny they pay him. I get all that. That's not a recipe for competing for a championship. Do we sneak into the playoffs? Maybe. I think the AFC is down this year. The South is atrocious. I think the West takes a step back from what was already a step back beyond expectations last year. The East, I think it's the Bills and everybody else. So, there's 3 wild cards available in this conference. Could the Steelers sneak into one of them at 9-8 or 10-7? Sure, they could. But the Bengals are probably going to win this division if they stay healthy. They have the best wide receiver in the division. They have one of the better running backs in the division. They probably have the best, certainly the most proven at this point. Sorry, Steeler fans. We'll see what Kenny Pickett can do in the regular season against defenses that are scheming to stop him before we declare him the second coming of whoever. But yeah, so I'm going to go Joe Burrow and the Bengals to top the division. I will say the Steelers slide in at second. I have the Cleveland Browns at third. And I have the Dirty Birds going down in a flaming cauldron of sulfur and brimstone.
I kind of knew you were going to do this, but I'm enjoying it anyway.
Listen, every time in my lifetime the Ravens have gotten good and they've got a quarterback that they fall in love with that everybody else goes, I don't know, they blow up. It's never been a quarterback-driven team. Joe Flacco obviously got him to and won a Super Bowl. Great, Joe. Excellent. Wonderful job. But on the whole, I don't see it. Lamar Jackson hasn't been particularly good in the postseason. I think him holding out, in my opinion, at the end of last year because they didn't want to pay him. And he was playing, the whole tag thing and injuries and guaranteed contracts.
And it's been such a tumultuous offseason with that looming over the result. I know eventually it ended kind of all's well ends well, but it has been a weird, rocky journey for the last year or so.
He still didn't get what he wanted. Like, the whole thing was the Ravens paid more than they wanted to pay, and they still didn't keep him happy. So, like, at the end of the day, is he riding into town now going, all right, I'm happy? No, he's riding into town going, I'm obviously getting paid a lot of money, but with a chip on his shoulder at the same time over what he had to do to get it and how long the team made him wait for it and what the final contract looked like. Plus, I continue to – and listen, I'm not one of these people who says Lamar Jackson's a running back. I understand he's got an arm. Don't hear me to say I think Lamar Jackson's a bad quarterback. I think Lamar Jackson's game is dependent on him being the best athlete on the field. Because one of the reasons he is able to throw the ball in the way that he does is because people are afraid to come and try to get him in the backfield sometimes when their responsibility is containment, because if he runs around him, then he's going to run for 50 yards. If he's not the best athlete on the field anymore, that's no longer the case. He doesn't have as much time in the pocket. People play him differently. They scheme him differently. You've seen it when he was hobbled, right? When he's not 100%, teams aren't as afraid of him. And I think you'll see that a lot as he gets older. He's coming off an injury, lest we forget. The last 2 years, he didn't finish the season. Their play with him and without him, obviously demonstrably different. Can he stay healthy? If he's healthy, is he happy? Seems to be one of these players who needs to be positive in the press all the time. People need to tell him how wonderful he is. He needs to read his name on the
big
Insta.
Trust, Tim. We need big trust is what we need. I believe that was the phrase of choice, was not.
Blah, 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 blah. I don't care what they call it these days. What he really wants is to be coddled and told how wonderful he is by everyone who talks to him. And, listen, there's a lot of football players. Lamar Jackson's one of many in that boat.
Yes.
I think it was Deshaun Watson in this very division who was just caught blocking people who didn't even follow it. Like, they didn't even mention him in the comments, like searching his name on Twitter.
Kevin Durant sort of situation. No, I agree.
Yeah.
So for what it's worth, Tim,
so there you go. Steelers are second behind the Bengals, then the Browns, then the Ravens.
Yeah, I actually have it fairly similarly. I mean, I think the Browns are on my list of sneaky terrible teams for this year because A, it's the Browns, and B, I really don't have any reason to suspect. No, well, yeah. I just mean it seems to be like, well, people will say Deshaun Watson year 2, but I'm not buying it. I have the Browns in the cellar again, which I don't bring me a huge amount of joy because it feels like punching down. But saying that as a Titans fan, that's pretty rough when a Titans fan feels like they're punching down on your team. But I have the Bengals winning as well. A couple of years ago, we had a long conversation before this pod even began about the Bengals being somewhat fortunate in how they got to where they ended up, which was the Super Bowl, turnover luck and so on. I think since then they've got a lot better. The offense is just so good. Like Burrow is obviously brilliant. Chase is brilliant. T. Higgins is brilliant. Tyler Boyd's a very good, dependable option. They brought in Irv Smith Jr., who might, I think, have a pretty good year as the starting tight end in that offense. Whether Mixon's any good is really, I don't want to say irrelevant, but it's more of a nice to have at this point. And they brought in Orlando Brown Jr., who's obviously should solidify the offensive line, which has been a sieve pretty much ever since Burrow got there. I have the Steelers second as well. I have the Ravens third, and I have the Browns fourth. The Ravens, I'll just mention it quickly. You kind of touched on a lot of the same things. I think a lot of the same things. I just don't have them being as bad. I think they have enough to kind of hover around being okay. My main reason is I just can't bank on Lamar Jackson playing every game. He's been injured, as you mentioned, the last 2 years. It's a huge drop-off. It's a huge drop. I know Tyler Huntley made the Pro Bowl, LOL, but it's not the same. This offense requires a fully healthy, dangerous, thrilling Lamar Jackson to be any good whatsoever. I know they brought in Todd Monken as the new offensive coordinator. There was a lot of carping about Greg Roman and how crap he was and holding people back. I remember hearing this with Russell Wilson too, by the way, and that worked out super well. So I just think Lamar's not going to play enough games. I think if he stayed healthy for all 17 games, I'd probably have Baltimore in the playoffs. But I don't think he will. And I don't really think this whole chat about, they added Odell Beckham. It's like, what are we talking about this now? Like, is this really going to make any difference? I like Zay Flowers. I think he's going to be a good pro. I don't really buy why they're going to be much better. I'll quickly touch on the Steelers because
sure.
I feel like you didn't mention them that much, which is interesting as a fan, but maybe that was intentional because I rambled about Titans for 20 minutes. I think the Steelers will be good this year because the team is very good. How good did the Steelers then go from that point becomes the Kenny Pickett question, which is open, right? But you can't say he's not got the weapons around him. He's got as much help as you could possibly give him. You brought in Allen Robinson, who may or may not be a superstar at this point in his career, but is a very good seasoned NFL pro. Pickens looks like he's going to be great, although if he could ever make a catch where he didn't have to use one fingernail and a tooth to grab it, that would be good. Deontay Johnson's a very good player. I think Najee Harris is going to have a good year despite all of the trash talking around his career being over and all this. I think the Steelers will be good. Defense will be really good again. I have the Steelers in the playoffs. I have the Ravens missing out, and I have the Browns last. But I think it's Cincinnati's division, and I think they win it pretty comfortably come season's end.
We got to move on, but real quick on the Browns, to support your position a little bit, we talk about puff pieces in the offseason. This was a perfect offseason for the Deshaun Watson puff piece. There haven't been that many.
Yeah.
The Deshaun Watson puff piece that I saw this week was about, the players voted him one of 5 captains. Oh, well, he is the starter.
Oh, because a quarterback being a captain obviously means he's going to have a great career, right? Because no quarterback's ever been ridiculous. I hate those captain.
The team respects him. No, stop it.
Yeah.
Just stop it.
I agree.
But
I
listen,
agree.
So
I think Stefanski's going to get fired by the middle of the season.
Probably. But the reason I still have the Ravens below them is I look at this depth chart and I see 2 things that concern me. 1, Lamar Jackson. We talked about the fall off to Tyler Huntley. 2, running back is just a bleh. Like J.K. Dobbins never took off. Gus Edwards has been fun, but not spectacular. They don't
Gus
have
Bus.
Gus the Bus. There you go. Their wide receiver room is Odell Beckham Jr. and then Odell Beckham Jr., mind you, hasn't been any good since. He was good in L.A. with 900 other wide receivers. He was good in New York when I was in college. I feel like that was eons ago. He was terrible in between there, and he missed all of last year hurt. What's he going to be? I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. And so you look down there and you're like, all right, so you've got OBJ who's but he's going to lose his mind the first time he's running free. Lamar doesn't see him and instead takes off and scampers for a 37-yard first down. He's going to be in Lamar's helmet going, throw me the ball, throw me the ball, throw me the damn ball. Well, and Lamar's going to be like, I just ran for 40 yards.
Yeah, and even more than that, maybe some of the standard receiver diva-ness, which does come along with him to a great or lesser extent. You just can't be thinking he's going to be wide receiver one. Like you just cannot be banking on that at this point. He's had a lot of injury problems. He's played well in spurts, really, since he left New York. I mean, since then it's been a whole lot of what if with Odell, right? The Browns, that never really worked. Obviously,
But
with
he
LA,
caught
he was
one
good, as you
really cool
mentioned.
pass over his head.
Yeah, he was phenomenal when he started his
He was.
career,
He
but
was. He was.
so a lot of other players. So I just think you can't be banking on him, and I agree. Zay Flowers, like I say, I do really like him, and I think that was a great pick for them. But year one, is he going to be the guy? And I just think the offense isn't gonna provide enough without Lamar running the ball. And I think the injuries, unfortunately, will start to take a toll because he's not the biggest heavyset dude in the world, and it's such an explosive movement that he requires as an athlete. So yeah, I have the Ravens third as well. Well, third
I have
instead
him
of
fourth.
fourth, but yes, third instead of
All
fourth.
right.